Hey everyone, my name is Allie and I'm a music therapist and a neuroscientist. And I'm here today to talk to you a bit about two of my favorite things, music and neuroscience. So I'm really interested in using the tools of neuroscience to better understand how the brain processes music. I'm also really interested in understanding why and how music evolved with us as a species. How is it that we have the wetware that can so readily process something as complex and rich as music? Music has been with us for a long time. We know that the earliest instruments date back to about 40,000 years ago. And we know that the ancestor of modern humans and Neanderthals, someone that existed 1 million years ago, had the anatomy necessary for singing. So these are just some curious facts to consider when we think about the evolution of music. Fast forward to modern day, and we know that music is all around us. It accompanies us in so many things that we do. It scores our favorite movies and TV shows. It's played at most every major event. We go and attend events to witness music, concerts, or even dance clubs just to dance to music. Many of us would identify as our favorite songs or our favorite artists when we were teenagers. We might have even made a mixtape for someone we had a crush on. Music taps into some of our deepest emotions. We use it to change our mood. It also can evoke some of our most powerful memories. We can readily see parents singing to their newborns, singing to their small children, helping them to better learn language. Music has also been used in healing practices across millennia. Many of us work as musicians, as music teachers, as music therapists. We rely on music for our livelihood. Music really is all around us. Can you imagine a world without music? So earlier in this video, you saw me playing a Stevie Wonder song with my violin and loop pedal. So let's explore together some of the parts of ourselves that allow us to experience music like that. So we'll start with this lovely structure here called the ear. This part itself is called the auricle. And it functions kind of like a parabolic antenna. So it's like collecting all of the sound, including music, in the environment and funneling it into our ear canal. One thing to remember is that sound travels as waves through the air. And this will become important as we begin to move further along this process. So sound waves are moving through our ear canal, and eventually they reach a membrane called the tympanic membrane, otherwise known as the eardrum. And I'm sure that a lot of us had parents that told us to be careful when we stuck the Q-tip in to clean our ears, that we didn't touch our eardrum. But usually sound waves don't hurt the eardrum. So when the sound waves reach our eardrums, this vibrates the membrane, and these vibrations are passed along to 3 tiny little bones. At this point, this is all still happening in air until we reach a structure called the cochlea. So the cochlea is usually described as a snail shell So I found this shell actually at the Jersey Shore, and I'm not sure what organism it's from, so maybe another scientist can help me out and possibly explain what creature this came from. But I'll use it here because it has a similar structure and kind of this spiral pattern to it. And that's what our cochlea looks like. Although it's not quite so big, we can't obviously fit two of these in our heads and still have space for our brains. So the actual size of this is actually more like a chickpea. The cochlea has 3 chambers that are filled with fluid, and it's the movement of this fluid that helps to transfer sound energy. So as you can see in the picture here, there's a special membrane or a thin piece of tissue inside of the cochlea, and it's called the basilar membrane, and it's also surrounded by fluid. When the vibrations from the middle ear, which were transferred through air through those tiny bones, reach the cochlea, they then travel through fluid and cause it to move. The movements of this fluid affect the basilar membrane. And we can take a closer look at what happens here. So I'm using this roll of trash bags to represent our basilar membrane spiral up in the cochlea. So we're just going to unravel it to better visualize what happens. So imagine that this room is filled with fluid because all of this is happening in a fluid medium. And the sound wave enters into the cochlea and it reaches the basilar membrane. And this sends the wave down the membrane, which I'm going to try to do here. So this is a very humble representation, but hopefully that helps to get a better sense of what's happening. And all along this membrane, regions are arranged tonotopically. So what does that mean? Each part of this membrane responds to specific frequencies. Think of a piano keyboard and each portion of this membrane as a key. But we're starting from the highest pitches or keys. As you can see in this picture, the part closest to the entrance of the cochlea responds to higher frequencies or higher notes, and the part at the apex or the distant end responds to low frequencies. The high frequency end is thicker and more rigid, whereas the low frequency end is thinner and more flexible. And as something like music, with many notes or frequencies happening at once, enters the inner ear, the basilar membrane detects those individual notes at the same time. Amazing. I'll link some helpful videos below to better visualize this. It's not just the basilar membrane at work here, but there are very special cells that sit on top of the basilar membrane. These are called hair cells, and we can see them here. And they're a part of a structure called the organ of Corti. These cells are also arranged tonotopically and respond to specific frequencies. Why are they called hair cells? They aren't cells that make the hair on our heads. Well, in fact, these cells do have tiny hairs on their top. We can see them here and here using an electron microscope. These hairs are called cilia, and they are critical in turning the mechanical energy of sound into electrical signals. So let's use this little plant as a representation of our hair cell. The pot portion being the cell body, these up here being the cilia that we just talked about. And so these sit on top of our basilar membrane. So when the basilar membrane moves, this also causes fluid up here to move as well, and this moves the cilia back and forth. And when this happens, this opens up ion channels in the cell body. And so this is where the mechanical signal is then turned into electrical signals. And off to the side, we have a group of neurons that extend their fibers and they connect to these hair cells. So once that electrical signal is produced, it's transmitted through the nerve fibers to those groups of cells called ganglion, and then they enter the brain, and that's where the signal is further processed, which we can talk about another day. So I hope that all of you musicians, music listeners, music appreciators enjoyed that, and I hope you have a better appreciation for our body's ability to process something that's so embedded in human experience as music. Happy musicking and happy sciencing. Ciao!